Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. On this channel, we talk about problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with a video. I'm a 21-year-old woman, and I'd always believed that I was the only child to my dad, 50. My mother had passed away due to complications during birth, so it just made the two of us. I had no memory or suspicion whatsoever to doubt the fact that I was an only child. All I have ever had are good memories because ever since I was little, my dad has always done everything for me. We have always lived a comfortable lifestyle, and he has always tried to fulfill every wish of mine. He's been nothing but an amazing parent in my eyes. As a family, we had created a lot of family traditions together, one of which was to have a family dinner together on every single one of my birthdays. None of my extended family or friends were invited to this dinner, and it had always only been just the two of us. And that's what I expected would happen this week during my 21st birthday. However, surprisingly, my dad told me that there was someone very special joining us for dinner. I got very curious to know who this special guest was, as my dad had never allowed anyone to join us previously, even my significant others during these dinners. Finally, my birthday came and I had a great time as usual, spending time with my amazing friends and family. I felt blessed to have such amazing people in my life, but the comment made by my dad about the person joining us for dinner was what I kept thinking about until the very night of the dinner finally came. I got ready and found myself glancing around the door every few moments until the doorbell finally rang, and my dad rushed to the door to open it. My dad welcomed the guest in, and my mouth dropped when I saw a figure that I could definitely say looked like the male version of me. We both shared the same features. Brunette hair, hazel eyes, 5'7", and pale skin. My dad asked me if I recognized who he was, and I replied by shaking my head as I watched them both walk inside and sit on the couch. I kept looking at the guy, but after a while stopped because I figured that's what made him shy. So far, it was only my dad speaking. He went on about how excited he was to introduce us to each other, and he finally did. He introduced the guy sitting right in front of me as my twin. Let's call him Josh for the sake of the story. I was so shocked hearing what my dad said that I let out a laugh, thinking that this was some sort of joke. The silence confirmed that it was indeed true, and my dad continued to speak as Josh and I both listened to him in silence. He explained to us how Josh and I were born as twins. He talked about how my mom had passed away due to complications in her pregnancy. My dad went through a phase suffering from severe depression and also could not afford taking care of the both of us financially. This was the first time I heard all of this, and honestly, I did not say much. Josh had the same reaction as I did. This quietness of Josh soon turned into rage as he asked my dad if it felt good to give up one child to abusers while treating the other like an absolute princess. He went on to congratulate me on my birthday in the most taunting tone and told my dad to have a fun time playing Happy Family. The room felt completely quiet. It took me a second to comprehend what was going on before something clicked inside me, and I started going off at Josh. I asked him how could he talk to my dad the way that he did, and how would it ever be his fault that his adoptive parents were deadbeats. Josh and I went back and forth for a while as my dad tried to quiet us both down. After we all had argued for a while, Josh raged out of the house before informing my dad to never contact him again, while my dad followed him outside the house. By the time my dad had returned, I had locked myself into my room and was crying my eyes out. I was too overwhelmed by this information, and the argument did not make things any worse, so I just decided to sleep things off. The next day, I decided to talk to a few friends about the situation, and they all had split up opinions. Some said I was right to stand for my dad, and the others said I should have stopped when my dad said I needed to. Feeling conflicted, I decided to talk to my dad over dinner. At first, the room was quiet, but my dad decided to break the silence by telling me that this was the first time he had to say he was disappointed in my reaction. He said he knew Josh has had a really rough upbringing, which is why Josh had reached out to him in the first place. Hearing those words from my dad put some perspective in for me, but I would still like some opinions. AITA for arguing with my twin, who I met for the first time, for berating my dad, during our first meeting? How can I fix things between us once again? Any advice would be much appreciated. I decided to do what many of you all suggested in the comments and messaged him with an apology, where I explained how he and I have been both affected by this separation. I wrote about how although our first interaction wasn't the best, I would still like to meet him to mend things and make it up to him if possible. I had no expectation of a reply, but surprisingly, I did receive one within a couple of hours of sending the text. Josh had accepted my apology and apologized to me and my dad back. We had a short conversation talking about school when I decided to ask him if he wanted to join us for dinner once again, and he answered with a yes, and so I decided to plan a small dinner with my dad and Josh. The dinner went great. We had a nice chat about here and there. It was mostly my dad speaking about my mom, their relationship, and our life. When it came for Josh to speak about his life, he opened up about his childhood and life until adulthood. Hearing all the details sent a shiver down my spine. It was truly devastating to hear about how different our lives had been, even though we were both so similar. I cannot imagine putting myself into his shoes. He said he was currently pursuing his bachelor's degree through a community college and worked at a guitar shop. After dinner, we continued having a conversation before Dad gave him his birthday gift. It was a check for his college tuition for the year. Josh turned emotional right after seeing it and hugged my dad. It was a heartwarming moment, and this would have not been possible without the advice given by you all. Thank you so much once again. NTA, the main a-hole here is your dad. I get wanting your biological children to meet each other, but this was the wrong way to go about it, especially if he was aware of the fact that Josh had a rough upbringing. Poor Josh probably felt overwhelmed and left out after seeing the closeness between you and your dad and lashed out. Rekindling a relationship with a separated family member isn't the same as just meeting a new person. There are a lot of conversations that need to take place before that happens. Maybe your twin must have agreed to meet you all in the hopes of finding the warmth of the family that he had been missing and let the emotions take the best of him. And that is what happened with you too, probably. Please show each other patience and kindness. ESH, especially OP's dad, for rushing a meetup. OP sucks for reacting the way that she did and continues to do so, even after being told to not involve herself and Josh, for letting his emotions get the best of him. But instead of beating yourselves up, you all should try to meet up again, but this time being mindful to not trigger unwanted emotions out of each other, or showing each other patience if something does happen. My dad met my stepmom, Pam, when I was like 10. She has a daughter, Liv, who's 3 years younger than me. I don't like either of them. I tolerate them to see my dad. When I, 23, female, was a kid, I was always a tomboy. I played sports, ran around outside in summer. My dad would take me camping and all that. Well, when Pam came around, she thought it was weird that I'd rather shoot hoops than play with dolls, and she said so. Her daughter and I had literally zero in common, but of course my dad made me spend time with them, doing what they wanted. Camping and fishing happened less and less because they didn't enjoy it. My dad never made me wear dresses or anything before Pam because he knew I hated it, but when Pam came around, I had to, since girls wear dresses. Eventually, he married Pam. My mom met Jeff a year or two after my dad met Pam. Jeff has a son, Tim, who's a year older than me. It was weird at first, but Tim and I started to get along. Jeff would take us dirt biking, Tim and I would play weed together, and we had family trips to Jeff's family lake house. When I was a teenager, I stopped seeing my dad as much, basically just special occasions. He kept saying I'd grow out of it. I didn't. I don't like them. And I told him countless times that they wouldn't be my family once I turned 18 because then he couldn't force it. My mom and Jeff never got married, still together, but I consider Jeff my stepdad and Tim my stepbrother. It wasn't always sunshine and rainbows, but it was way better than Pam and Liv. Helps that nobody forced Tim and I to be friends. Anyway, I graduated college last weekend. My dad brought Pam and Liv. We actually argued about it on the phone because I wasn't inviting them. He said, they're family and you'll appreciate having them in your life one day when you mature, and insinuated he wouldn't come otherwise. So after the ceremony, we were all taking pictures and some friends came over. I introduced them to my family, my mom and dad, and then I introduced Jeff and Tim as my stepdad and stepbrother, and Pam as my dad's wife and Liv as dad's wife's daughter. Sunday morning, my dad texted me and said he hopes I'm happy with myself, and how Liv was upset that I don't even see her as a sister, but Tim is. He said I need to quit holding a grudge and being mean to a 20-year-old kid. Thing is, I'm not holding a grudge, but if they need to come to my event so bad, I'm not introducing them as my step whatever because they're not. They're just my dad's family. AITA? NTA, 20 years old isn't a kid, and if Liv has a problem, she should come to you herself. Your dad constantly disrespects you and forces your hand, and then when you assert your right to introduce your guests how you want to, he gets mad. I don't think so. Your dad is an immature one. I'm glad you have Tim and Jeff. NTA, your father did a complete 180 with your relationship once he met Pam and Liv. You went from being close with common interests to him allowing Pam to take the lead in everything relating to you. His wife and stepdaughter were his choice, not yours, and you never developed familial feelings for them. He's angry because you aren't willing to play happy family with him, but you can't force yourself to love them. You have done nothing wrong here. My husband and I got married in 2021. We had a small wedding, and my in-laws gave us a nice honeymoon trip to an island resort. It was very nice, except when we went to check out, and my in-laws had not informed me that they had only paid the deposit, $500, and the rest was our responsibility, $6,000. We zeroed out every card and we still had to call a bunch of people to get the rest. We got home with no money for the next week and a half, and we owed our friends and relatives money now. We were really upset. My husband was even more upset when they told us that they thought we would get enough from our wedding to cover it. People weren't exactly heavy-handed with cash. Out of 25 guests, we got $1,000. They ended the conversation saying that we were ungrateful and we withheld our financial situation from them. Maybe I'm missing something, but we both just graduated in 2019 and we didn't really get to start working until the end of 2020. We never planned a big wedding to save money, and our original honeymoon trip was just going to be hiking and camping. I kind of thought it was obvious that we didn't have a lot of money. Unfortunately, because my husband has a trust, he gets at 30, he's 28. He does not want to cut contact or minimize contact. The reason why this is getting brought up now is because my brother-in-law is celebrating 5 years of dating with his girlfriend. My in-laws paid for the same resort and even gave him a credit card to take with them to cover anything. We approached my in-laws about it with the prefix about how we're still trying to catch up from the honeymoon incident. We felt like they should at least give us a check for the wedding money we got if they're so obviously going to pick favorites. My husband even brought up that he is the only one of his siblings who had to pay his own way for college and that he never complained about it once. No, it didn't go over well, and we didn't get a check. All we got was a lecture about how ungrateful we've become and that they're not our financial guardians and they don't need to provide a living for us. They also brought up that we are jealous of brother-in-law and that the only reason they treat him differently is because he's trying to get a business off the ground. My personal opinion of my brother-in-law is that he's lazy, incompetent piece of crap who mistreats women and will never work for anything in his life. Yes, I would say we are jealous of brother-in-law. It's obvious that he is the favorite. My husband got a master's degree and they sent an edible arrangement. Brother-in-law got a certificate from a tech school and he got a brand new truck. The only reason I'm leaning towards us being the a-hole is because we had gotten over it until we found out about brother-in-law's trip. So help me out. Are we the a-hole here? NTA. If they gifted you a honeymoon without mentioning it was only the deposit, then they are clearly the AH in this situation. Sounds like they wanted the credit for the honeymoon at a fraction of the cost. The fact that you then struggled to pay the surprise bill and are now in debt makes it so much worse. Great way for them to celebrate your marriage is by throwing you under the bus. When my cousin was sick, I gave all the savings I had to help. My cousin didn't have medical insurance and besides having 2 chronic illnesses, also had cancer. I legitimately and truly believed my cousin was dying. In addition to help from family, my cousin did some crowdfunding and had help from a charity. The entire thing turned out to be a lie. My cousin never had any chronic illness or cancer. The crowdfunding website returned all the money to everyone who donated to my cousin. As part of the sentence, my cousin must pay the charity restitution, but the judge didn't include any family members in that restitution. We all gave to my cousin directly, but everyone else, like friends, co-workers, and strangers, gave online and got a refund. I was disappointed the restitution order didn't cover me in it. I'm taking my cousin to small claims court to get my money back. I originally thought that I needed to hire a lawyer to sue, but the one I was going to hire pointed me to small claims because of the amount I gave and said that I have a good chance and won't need a lawyer. My aunt and uncle absolutely reamed me out when they found out that I'm taking my cousin to small claims court. My parents and my grandmother asked me to withdraw the case too. I don't understand this. Everyone honestly and truly thought that my cousin was dying. They all gave money too. In court, it was proven that my cousin not only didn't have cancer, but also not Ehlers-Danlos and POTS heart disease either. My aunt and uncle still think my cousin is chronically ill. It's absolutely bonkers to me that they, my own parents and my grandmother, aren't furious because they lost money too. My aunt and uncle were unhappy with the restitution order from the charity and the jail time. My mom says I'm kicking when my cousin is down and the family shouldn't do that to each other. So I'm here asking neutral, non-involved people on the internet, would I be the a-hole if I didn't withdraw the case and take my cousin to small claims court? YWNBTA, your cousin shouldn't have tried to be a scammer. Go ahead